Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today is a great time of year. It's time for Andrew White's yearly comic. This is yearly 2024, obviously. Andrew's one of the first artists that when we started this channel and I really started looking for, people I didn't know about, things I'd never heard of, scouring Instagram and just finding all the cool shops and following them to cool artists. Actually, what happened was Partners and Sons, when I was still doing the grab bag, they sent me an Andrew White comic, a couple Andrew White comics, and I fell in love and immediately ordered all of Andrew's stuff that was still available. And now I'm obsessive, probably to the point of annoying Andrew with how much I love his work. But really excited for this. You can see on the front page here, he's got this nice, like, little one-page thing about having a bloody nose. It looks like this gives you a sense of his aesthetic, this kind of layered thing, which I really, really like. I think Andrew's one of the first, if not the first artist, in combination with working with Sean, learning about print technologies, seeing the possibility of doing artwork and a lot of separate pieces and digitally putting them together, coloring them digitally, like with screens and stuff, to take something that was just done in a black and white ink wash and colorize it and layer it and start to get some like screen printing effects in print, which Andrew is really, really good at. At the beginning of every yearly, Andrew kind of gives an update of the last year's worth of work, some quotes he likes, what he's been reading, what he's been thinking about. So that's always cool. This book, as with most of the yearlies, are broken up into a couple different stories. Some of them are extensions from stories in other yearlies that will probably then later be reworked and collected as volumes. That's one thing that's really interesting about Andrew's work, is he reworks it a lot, and we'll put it out in this format, and then we'll curate and re-edit it and redraw a lot. So you get to see someone who's constantly evolving their stuff, and I really, really love an artist like Andrew, where by the end of his career, I'm going to be able to look at a body of work, and that body of work is going to show, like, just a through line through all these different genres and things that he's attempting. There's still a sensibility behind it that I love, and that adds up over time, and I think that's really powerful. And then seeing someone rework stuff is also really powerful too. You can learn a lot from what they're learning. But a lot of interest in like pared down cartooning, abstraction, very simple, clear communication on here. Really, like with this kind of screen printing effect look, where you have an ink drawing over top of it, looks like a colored pencil drawing. These were probably done on two separate pieces of paper. This was probably done just in pencil and then colorized when it gets in the computer, I think is how he's working. It allows for a lot of really beautiful moments. It allows him to prepare the line art like line art. The pencil art can be stochastic screening. He can really prepare everything perfectly for print. Even though I think these are digitally printed and not getting the benefit of the offset lithography. If this were printed with offset lithography, there would be so much cool stuff going on in here. Spot colors and stuff like that would be amazing. But yeah, some really beautiful abstraction there. Really beautiful just visions of sound in these. A lot of these stories can be more abstract. This one is a little bit more through. I don't want to really talk about what the stories are, but this one's definitely focused on some characters, and you can see they're doing their morning routine and their yoga and stuff like that. I've found that a lot of Andrew's work, for me, seems to have to do with the idea of memory. Like, I'm really engaged with his stories when I'm reading them, and a lot of them are very like almost fugue state, where you're kind of popping in and out of a few different characters' lives, and it comes together to make like this poetic statement and feeling of atmosphere. And I'm really engaged with it when I'm reading it, and then when I walk away, a lot of the times, like, I'm left with a sensibility rather than like a plot or something like that. Normally I would complain about that, but with Andrew's work, it seems so intentional, and memory seems to come up so much in his stuff that it seems like an intentional play that he's doing with the audience. And you can see in this story here just some of the stylistic variation and the way that colors are used throughout. So really beautiful work. Then we have basically like the end of the first chunk, and this has some more diaristic type of thing here. You can see some of these were sketches for some of the images in here, like the paintbrush. You can see his sketch process, and again, some of that like layering and screening of things in here, which is very interesting. It's a really interesting way to start treating the z-axis of the page, giving it some depth and using the depth for meaning. And you can see that there's like kind of this sense of faded memories and things. I've never seen any here. He's saying in the back, do you want to get lost? There's just lots of things that suggest ephemeral things fading away. The second chunk of the book is broken into 4 stories. Those 4 stories are also like these vague ephemeral memories of something, but I believe they're all from the same character. I'd have to reread it a couple times. It's one of those things where I thought they were separate stories, and then as I read, they are more interlinked than I thought. Like a lot of the imagery repeats, so you have this really awesome, beautiful pared down rendering of the bird in flight. Then you get to the next story, and you have someone looking at the clouds saying, list the colors, look at the clouds and list the colors you see, and they're doing that. And then the third one is about a kid hiding in a drained out pool. Obviously he finds a key, and at the end of that story you see the key being used. Some of the bird imagery returns, and then you have this guy later in life saying, you look at the clouds, can you count the colors? So then you get this sense that, oh, okay, like he let the birds out. The key has something to do. He's having memory of when he was in the pool, and the pieces are like you could scramble them back up in a few different arrangements and still have it work, is what it feels like. It feels pretty modular. And then when you put them all together in different ways, you kind of get different meanings. So there's some really interesting like formal stuff going on in how Andrew structures his stories, not just in terms of like comics formalisms. Then the last story in here is kind of a different one for Andrew's work. It's autobiographical for the most part. I don't think I've seen him do any autobiography before. At first, I thought that this was just like a one-off, but you have some quotes here from Eleanor Davis from SPX in 2015. So obviously Andrew was like in a panel there, or listening to a panel or something, and writing down the dialogue. There's a couple other where you get some little bits, some interesting thoughts from other comic artists that are in there. But then you get a story about Andrew and a friend that learn about a collector who's selling off his interesting rare comics, and they go over to buy them. Some really interesting formal stuff here. This actually reminds me of a Tom Herpich piece that Brandon Graham shared with us in a Formalism Friday, where the first couple times you get the words and the images together. Open the book like this, do this, turn the page. Open the book like this, do this, turn the page. So then by the time you get to here, it's relax your shoulders, do this, so turn the page. Do this, turn the page, and you won't have to read anymore. Trust me a little bit. Do this, open the book like this. So they're really interesting, like training the audience, and you can strip away the picture and have them understanding what the do this means. That was a trick Brandon pointed out, and it's interesting to see it show up in another place. This story also has some really, really cool versions of this x-axis thing I'm talking about, where through layering, treating things with transparencies, kind of treating like overprinting and screen printing, you got a lot of really interesting compositions and images in the story that represents mental space very well, the way that mental space kind of bleeds one into the other. Just a lot of really delicate, sophisticated things. I'm assuming that this is what all of Andrew's art looks like originally, and then it gets colored in the computer. I could be wrong, but I think he's just screening these things in the computer to get like the colored work like this. I could be wrong. This could all be colored pencil. And maybe this one is, but I think a lot of the time these things are being toned afterwards. And then some more like little one-off things in the back, some really, really just stripped down great, like right to the point cartooning. This is a real pleasure for me. Andrew's work is always a real pleasure. He's got a book now coming out with Glacier Bay that I just saw announced. I'm always excited when I get a more long-form work from artists I love. But I do really, really look forward to the yearlies every year. And Andrew's been doing this for a long time now, and I hope he keeps going. I hope this is a lifelong practice for him, because it will be a significant, substantial, interesting, and noteworthy body of work. It already is, but you do this for another 30 years and you're really talking. So please support Andrew White. He's an amazing artist and deserves the support, really at the forefront of like where comics can go, I think.